time. It doesn't matter if it's 15 minutes. If you only have 5, then stop talking. So my name is Jace Kugel. I'm an alcoholic. I'll be here all weekend. Don't forget to tip the waitress. You know what I mean? I'm gone. No, we're supposed to be talking, I think, about how the steps work, how we work the steps in our daily lives. This past year has been a little bit of a challenge for me for my first year. So I got out of treatment last April 2nd. And so I started working the steps then. I had some medical issues that I didn't really share with my home group. I had a perforated colon, so I was literally, in myself, my crapping in myself, and was down with that I had to get my hip replaced. And my sponsor told me, he's like, Jason, he goes, you never would have known that you had anything going on. And I did that because I didn't want to feel like I was special, I guess. I didn't want to reach out for that help. I didn't need it. So those are so working those steps and working the daily steps. So I'll tell you another story here real quick. So tell you how my mind works is Eli's my roommate. He's sitting down there, and we come in yesterday, and he's like, oh, awesome, man. He goes, we can talk about what we're going to say tomorrow. And my first thought was like, I'm not giving him too much information because I don't want him to one-up me, right? I'm like, screw that, dude. I'm like, no, dude. He doesn't know that. So, listen to Harold and Tommy. I guess I had to make an amends with you, Eli. And let you know, right? But that's what working the steps looks like for me today. Is, I can laugh about that kind of stuff. And I was thinking about it, and I'm like, I'm going to freaking quote some of the big book. I'm not here to just not drink. I'm here to live sober, blah, 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 all the promises, right? And what I realized is that was just me trying to peacock, right? Yeah. And thank you again, Harold and Tommy, because, during our lunch break, I realized that that's not what I should be doing. I should just be talking from the heart. And when I walked into this program, I was 51. I'd been in and out or whatever, but I never tried to get sober. But I was at a point of desperation where I didn't have anything else to do. I had no choice, didn't know where to go. And so the steps for me was something new, but it's something that I was willing to try because alcohol had failed me. So with that, I got to work. I said, I did a lot of praying, still do a lot of praying, but it's the simple things for me today, only being in this program a year, and working this program, it's the small things today that really add up to the big things. A year ago today, I was sitting in freaking treatment, and Cliff and some of you guys had come through Country Road on your way here, and now I'm sitting here talking to you. It just doesn't make any freaking sense to me. I'm like, it does not make any sense. Yeah, right. Excuse me, sorry. But it's those things that, I can look back at today and, I'm able to walk in the room of my ex-wife. I live with my ex-wife, by the way, and her husband, by the way. Just we'll get that out of the way right now.
Hey, we want to hear that story.
I have my own room, and I was told not to end up in their bed, so we're good, right? But I'm sorry. His face was like, sorry, but that's what this program affords me to do is, not being. All right, we would, yeah, okay, I got you. But it allows me to walk in a room and not feel ashamed. It allows me to look at people in the eyes instead of their feet. And, you know, I had it, like, they talked about it all weekend, is that, you know, from early part of my life, I'd never felt good inside about me. When I looked in the mirror, I thought I was a piece of trash. Today, I can look in the mirror and be proud of myself, at least for a little bit. You know, working these steps for me is you know, I'm a very competitive person, so I wanted to check the box off and get through them as quickly as possible because I was going to beat your ass, right? And what they have taught me is that I need to enjoy every moment and just stay where my feet are today. You know, I have relationships today that I never thought I could have with my mom, my dad, my estranged wife, and I've been able to separate relationships that I know that are bad for me and not feel bad about it today. The freedom that these steps have given me every day is something. It's a miracle that I never thought I could freaking accomplish, or that I would ever, or that I was worth, right? It just blows my mind, the things that this program, these steps, working these steps gives me on a daily basis. It gives me a peace of mind, some joy. It allows me not to care what other people think about me because I know where I am today. And, you know, I'm blown away by the fact that I get to spend a weekend with a bunch of drunks and we are having a freaking blast, y'all. You know, and things like this today, my fear goes away just a little bit more. Is by being around you guys and watching you guys, listening to you guys. You know, so the steps for me are so much more than just a number. They're in order for a reason, right? But they are so much more than a number. They are a way of life, and I freaking would not trade it for anything. You know, when they told me I had to put recovery first, I had no other choice. It was that or die. And I believe that today. Wholeheartedly believe that today. And, you know, talking about believing in something or the miracles and believing in God. God is my higher power. And I think it was Tommy that was saying it earlier yesterday, is the fact that you can't tell me he's not real because of the miracles that I've seen in my life and then others around me too. I get to live an unselfish life and work with others, even though I haven't been here very long. You know, maybe I have a little bit of a tidbit to help somebody else along the way and hopefully get what I got. Don't talk past my time. I just want to thank you guys because I'm having a tremendous time, tremendous weekend, and I love this program and I love sobriety, and I appreciate every single one of y'all.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm next.
Sorry.
I'm Jim. I'm an addict and alcoholic. And I'm from Greenville, South Carolina, up here with a few buddies this weekend, enjoying this conference for the second time. As you can see, I'm probably the oldest newcomer on the table. My sobriety date is October 13th, 2024. So I'm just at 15 months or so right now. Originally went through rehab in Atlanta for physicians. I'm a family doctor. I had an addiction that went on for, I mention this because it just impacts the way that I have to handle my recovery. There's a lot of consequences that I'm facing because of it. When I went into rehab at Talbot in Atlanta, I was told that physicians and lawyers and pilots, who they specialized with, I guess, there, had a very high rate of recovery. I was told that it was, because there's so much hanging on us staying sober. So much of our lives are wrapped up in our professions and the things we do. and so much to lose, really. And I had not lost it all. I will say that I had a very low bottom. In fact, I'd say my bottom came after in sobriety for me, and it was the steps that helped me to move through that. Of course, my addiction was a secret for the better part of 20 years. Nobody knew. Nobody knew. So I guess I sort of managed it well, or maybe not, as I've learned in the years after. But on the surface at least, it looked like I was managing it pretty well to let it go on for that long without getting caught, basically. And fortunately, I was introduced to AA while there in rehab, and said those words for the first time, that I'm an addict, that I'm an alcoholic. And that was very impactful for me. I also got plugged in with, it was at the very tail end of COVID, this is 2022, when Zoom groups were still pretty popular, and actually thrived on that for a couple of years. Very thankful for that time. I was in a group that met twice a day, every day. And, while I see the benefit of meeting guys and, giving hugs and encouraging one another in person, you get to know people pretty quickly when you're meeting with them twice a day, every day. And that kind of fellowship can develop online too. So, like I said, I'm very thankful for that time. I got my first sponsor on Zoom, a guy in Canada, and he took me through the book. And he was a big book guy, and I appreciated that. So I fell in love with the big book, and eventually got to lead some meetings like that. So I attended this conference for the first time 2 years ago. It was my first conference ever, and loved it. Especially loved the fellowship time that I had to spend with guys from my group, getting here and going home. It was a blast. Even in person, you don't get to know people as well as you do when you get to travel and spend time together. And I think see how other guys are living the steps in their lives. That's what matters to me. And it's what matters to me when I sit and chat with you guys at the table at breakfast or lunch, It's hearing how your lives have been changed through this program. And it's the thing that, honestly affects me the most when I'm in a meeting and I hear or see a new guy coming out of the darkness, right? That's the thing that motivates me to keep on doing this thing. How the steps have impacted my life on a regular basis, well, I've been through the steps a couple times now. I had a relapse about 6 months after being here 2 years ago, and decided to try some controlled drinking. And, I found that the allergy is real with alcohol for me too. I broke out in lies once again, and kept it a secret for about 3 months. Once again. So obviously I had things left to learn. But in the rooms, especially in my home group, I go to one in Greenville called Precisely How We Recovered. You guys, the man in that room, told me that I wasn't starting, it wasn't starting all over. Even though I was getting a white chip, that all the things that I'd learned in those first couple of years were still with me. And they were right. I had to be told that a number of times because it was pretty hard to relapse like that. I think that I'm honestly grateful for that. I can now resonate with others who have had that experience. I'm not a one-chip wonder, you know. The amends that I've been doing in my sobriety and have a lot to do with my family mostly. They're the ones that were most, and I'm sure that's true with most of us, most closely impacted. And over a period of 20 years, you know, I managed to do some damage. And if nothing else, just the fact that I kept secrets from them for so long, and they're suddenly learning that this father, this husband, that they thought they knew, they don't, right? I'm an imposter. And so that's a hard thing for family members to face sometimes. I have one son that has cut me off immediately when he learned of my addiction and hasn't spoken with me since. Another that it took a while, but he was all about reconciling our relationship, and so I had the pleasure of sitting down and doing an amends with him. He had written me a letter in rehab that we went through step by step, and I was able to own up to those things and not be defensive and not give excuses and not apologize. Although he wanted me to apologize, I did. He said, "Dad, would you just apologize?" So at that point I did, because that's what he wanted. That's what he needed. But he was able to see at that point, I think, all the things that I'd been doing. And so I could, it wasn't just empty promises, so to speak, at that point. And I'm assuming that my younger son one day will, at the direction of my sponsor, I've written him a letter. I modified it a couple times since then, but that I'm prepared to meet with him and speak with him whenever he's ready on his time. And I am trusting God to do that reconciliation, do that thing in my life to bring us back together, bring our family back together at some point. I also go to therapy with my wife every 2 weeks, and I don't always love it, but I do it because it's what she needs after all that I've put her through. And I also give to it. I don't just attend. I do what I can to do the work in those sessions to make things better for us. I get reminded daily of the sins of my past. I'm in a monitoring program, so if you hang around with me long enough, you'll see that twice a day I get to blow, and I check in every morning, and sometimes I have to go give urine specimen or a blood test or a hair test or whatever. I'm never nervous about that because I know what I know, right? But it does remind me quite frequently, and I have to sometimes take a deep breath and say, this is for the best, and this is a consequence of what I've done. Got a 5-year contract. I'll be over next year, hopefully. So there's that, working through that on a daily basis. I've also reconnected with my faith. Like the book says, some of us go back there to church where I grew up and have enjoyed getting back into the fellowship of my church. I had a funny story. I had a men's group meeting that I was invited to share with at church last month, and really had to think hard about what I was going to share because it wasn't common knowledge about my addiction. But I decided that my story really wasn't much of a story without sharing it. And I asked the guys, of course, to keep it to themselves, but I shared what I could of all that I'd been through. After the meeting, the band, they were having a little band play some worship songs or something, and they decided to introduce the band members have the band members introduce themselves. And the first guy, the drummer, said, "Hey, my name's Chad," and I'm the only one in the room that said, "Hi, Chad." And I was like, oops, outed myself there. No, so I'll finish up with just saying that I am very thankful also for the program of AA and what it has meant for me in my life. I did not think that at 63-ish that I could change, right? Most people don't. Most people don't change. Most people get to a certain point, and maybe pretty young, in fact, when we get set in our ways and our political ideas and our faith ideas and everything. And this program has challenged me to change in ways that I didn't think were possible at my age. And that is pretty miraculous, actually. And I see that happening all the time in the rooms of AA, and I'm very thankful for it. Thanks for letting me share tonight.
Hello, my name's Elias V. I'm an alcoholic. So I would say that my, a little bit about me is my sobriety date is May 30th, 2025. Thank you. Appreciate it. And, I had my 26th birthday. My birthday's May 27th, so my 26th birthday, I spent it in detox. A couple days later, I met Terry J., my sponsor, and that was my first introduction to Alcoholics Anonymous, and it completely changed my life. And it just, I felt seen and heard by another alcoholic, and and for that I'm eternally grateful, for sure. And so I went to treatment, and when I was at treatment, I had as soon as I got there, I dug in. I started reading the literature. I wanted to learn everything I could about this way of life, and since then it's been nothing but great things. While I was still in treatment, I asked Terry to be my sponsor, and I was, he told me to read 86 through 88 every night, and I did it. As soon as he said to, I went home, or not home, treatment. I went to treatment and just read it every morning, every night, and I just started to feel a little better every day, just a little bit better, 1% more. And I got out of treatment, went to the suggested sober living that they had recommended, and I got a pretty good job a couple months in, and then within 4 months I was asked to be an assistant house manager at my sober living, and for that I'm really grateful. I get to experience the change and just witness a lot of really good men come in and out of the house, and just see the change in their lives overall. If as far as my personal issues, the steps give me an answer to everything. Heads or tails, like Cliff says, my life's going to be all right, and there's a lot of power in that for me. I feel, extremely blessed to get the opportunity to share a little bit about my story to you guys, and that's probably about all I got. I'm pretty short and sweet, but thank you guys.
Looks like I got an extra 20 minutes or so. I'll add it to my time now. No, I'm kidding. Hi, my name is Brent Taylor, and I'm an alcoholic. My sober date is August 31st of 2024, and for that I'm super grateful. Wow. This is the very first retreat I've ever been to. I've been to a co-ed conference in Arkansas last October. I don't know if that really counts as like a retreat, but this is the first men's retreat I've been to, and a retreat of this kind. And I'm kind of on fire right now for this. You know, this is really cool for me. I've had a lot of really good conversations with different men here this weekend so far, and had a really meaningful conversation after the morning session before lunch with my sponsor and a couple of other men from my home group. And Tommy and Harold, I really enjoyed listening to you guys so much so far. I've been really engaged with that. I think what's cool for me is listening to you guys share your stories. They're like identical to mine. You know, I see and hear myself in everything that you said. A lot of the externals are really different potentially, but the stories and the experiences and the feelings that you guys shared are the ones that I have experienced, ones that I have felt. You know, and it's just and it's cool for me. I think that's why these kinds of things matter. These kinds of conferences and retreats matter, because it gives us an opportunity to see that so many other people have experienced just what we've experienced and felt all the same feelings that we have felt, and that we really truly are not unique. Because I came into Alcoholics Anonymous a little under a year and a half ago, I guess, or just a little over a year ago, actually, out of treatment. And, you know, I came in thinking that I was unbelievably different than the men in my home group. Right, I walked into that room, and you know, I kind of hesitated whether or not to share this or not. I don't know, but I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'll give you a little bit of my backstory too. Sorry, so I can kind of make my point. I grew up in Tulsa in a very, very devout Catholic household with unbelievably amazing parents. I know that's not part of everyone's story, but it's a part of mine. I have these insanely loving, my parents have loved me, you know, unconditionally my entire life. They've never stopped. Actually, not too long ago, I was listening to a podcast that was called Sober Speak, if anyone's listened to that, from a guy from Dallas named John. And there was a woman on that being interviewed who's from Oklahoma City, and a lot of people here know her. Her name is Jerry Dawn, and she's a great member of AA in Oklahoma City. And she talked about her parents, you know, and I really connected with what she said. And she talked about, you know, I had this amazing parents, and she said, if my parents could have parented alcoholism out of me, they would have succeeded. Right. And I really identified with that. If my mom and dad could have parented alcoholism out of me, they would have been successful. I know they would have. So, sorry, kind of lost my train of thought. But anyway, so I had these really, really amazing parents, and I think whenever I first got sober, I wanted to get sober for my mom and dad. You know, they had sacrificed so much for me for so long, and I treated them like absolute garbage. You know, stole as much as I could from them. Credit cards. I remember one. I think I charged over $12,000 to it. I'm still making a monthly payment on that to my mom and dad now that I've made amends to them. You know, I got sober from my mom and dad. And I'm happy to say now that I've remained in the program, and I think I'm sober today for myself, but I definitely got sober, you know, for them. But anyway, so I grew up in this really conservative home as a gay man, and being gay was such a massive part of my identity. It might have been my entire identity for a really, really long time. I remember actually, after I graduated from college in Oklahoma, I decided, I need to go somewhere gayer, and I need to go somewhere where there are a lot more prospects, and so I moved to New York City, and I loved it, and my mom and dad, they drove a U-Haul with all the stuff the few things that I had, from Tulsa, Oklahoma to Manhattan, and helped me move all this stuff up into this tiny, tiny apartment in Soho that I lived in with a roommate for several years. And, those people would have done absolutely anything for me. But I always thought, growing up when I was younger, that if I admitted that I was gay, and let me tell you, I wasn't super trying hard to hide that I was gay. There was, for a while when I was younger, I tried to, I just wasn't very good at it. Trying to pretend to be straight and fit in. Something Harold said earlier, that what you think of me paralyzes me, right? And that I have identified with that so hard because what other people thought of me, or what I thought they thought of me, absolutely paralyzed me. And it's why I drank, it's why I drank. I drank because I absolutely needed to escape all the things I thought you thought about me, right? And it worked like a charm, for a really, really long time. It really did. Come to find out, New York City is not a really good place to. It is a really good place to become an alcoholic. And I went there, and I had the most beautiful social life I'd ever had before. And I was dating, and I was doing all these things, and I was drinking a lot. I was drinking, and then it became every single day, and then it became I can't. And I identified with Tommy's story a little bit too, because I was a teacher in New York City. I taught in a public high school in Lower Manhattan for a while, until I couldn't anymore, because drinking was such a priority. And for a while, I went to school and taught students drunk, and then eventually I was found out. And I was one of those alcoholics too, who whenever you started finding out that I had an issue with alcohol and you confronted me about it, I was going to move. I'm just going to leave, and I did that. I left Oklahoma. When I was in college, I was in a fraternity, and whenever people in a fraternity are confronting you about the fact that you might have a problem with drinking, you probably have a problem with alcohol. But that pissed me off, so I moved to New York. And then my best friends there started asking me if I thought maybe I had an issue with drinking, and that made me mad, and so I moved back to Oklahoma. And then I lived in Oklahoma City for a while, and people started confronting me about my drinking, so I moved to Dallas. And then when I was there, things got really, really bad. That's where I was last, and where my life really, went to shambles. And before I finally, asked for help and came back to Oklahoma, I went to treatment, sober living, into AA, and doing what I'm doing now. But anyway, I'm kind of all over the place. I'm very nervous, so I'm kind of jumping all over the place right now and trying to take it back to the topic. And I had a point that I wanted to make, and then I'll forget the point that I was trying to make. So this is speaking like this. It makes me feel this is one of the scariest things. I've done a lot of scary things in my life, and this is very scary to me. I used to pass on sharing sometimes, and not too long ago I was actually at an H&I, and I got called on and asked to share, and I declined. And and my sponsor, was sitting in front of me, and he kind of looked back at me like this. And I knew after the meeting we were going to have a conversation, and we did. And he talked to me about, we talked about how not wanting to share is completely ego-driven, actually, and self-centered, right? I'm scared to share. I'm scared to talk in front of people because I'm paralyzed by what you think about me. What you think about me paralyzes me, right? I have such a huge ego. My ego is massive, and I want to be well perceived, right? I want to be liked really badly. That's why I drank. I wanted to be liked. I want to be liked right now, right, in front of all these people here. I want people to think that I'm doing a good job, right? I feel like when I first got into AA too, I went really hard, and it was a good thing, right? But it was also because I wanted everyone to think that I was doing AA better than the other new people, kind of like Jason said. I wanted to be like the star newcomer, and then the results of that ended up being really positive, right? I ended up having a really good life, and things have gone really, really well for me. Anyway, all for the past several days, ever since I got asked to do this, I have been thinking about what I want to say, and I've gone over so many things. And I've had these brilliant ideas and brilliant stories, and some of them I wrote down on my phone and reviewed earlier. And then I thought, no, I need to not use notes or prepare for this too much, and just get up there and say, whatever God chooses to let me say in this moment. But and just be honest. I think that's why when Brian called me, he said, just be honest and let God do the talking. Well, God is not doing a great job right now. I feel like he's kind of all over the place, but that's all right. I am just I'm so grateful. This has been so cool for me. I know I said this earlier, but I'm just so grateful for the stories that have been shared here. Not just Harold and Tommy, but the new people that I've met from around the country. It's been really, really impactful for me so far. And like I said, I think earlier, that one of the points I was trying to make when I mentioned the fact that I grew up as a little gay boy in conservative Oklahoma was that I was convinced that I was, so unbelievably different from everybody else. And so it was being in AA has been one of the most positive things that could have happened to me, I think, because it made me understand that I'm actually no different than anyone else, and nobody cares about those kinds of things, those kinds of details, right? And I've never felt more a part of something in my entire life than I do right now, right? As I do as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And going down into the basement every Wednesday with the men of my home group who are, for the most part, straight, right? The majority of those men are straight men, and I used to avoid straight men like the plague. I was scared of them. I got bullied a lot younger. I thought straight men were kind of evil. And I'm really excited, to be able to say today that, I know that's not true. And those men have taken me in and loved me really hard and invited me to everything they can invite me to, and got me really involved in Alcoholics Anonymous, and have been more kind to me probably than anybody else in my life, maybe other than my parents, right? And I'm just unbelievably grateful for it. I think what's also such a miracle to me, kind of taking it back to the steps a little bit here, which I think is the topic. We got to incorporate the steps into our daily lives. I kind of think, when I think of that, I think of, how we practice these principles in all of our affairs, right? I become a principled person, hopefully, right, through the 12 steps. And then I take those principles and I take them to work with me, right? And I take them into my home life, right? I used to get so wrapped up in this idea of what God's will for me was, because people talked about that a lot in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I didn't understand how a person could know what God really wanted them to do or what God's will was. And in the big book, it makes it pretty plain and clear, right? That it's just to be of maximum service to God, and the way you're of maximum service to God is by helping His kids, right? So my sponsor always says, just helping God's kids. And I feel like that's what I aim to do, right? And is to help others. And it's cool. Alcoholics Anonymous is the best program in the world. It gets you out of yourself and helping other people and helping God's kids. And it's just amazing to me that I'm also talking about God and that I actually have a relationship with a God of my understanding today, because I was a staunch atheist for a really long time. I was filled with hate and resentment toward God and toward the church and towards Christian people in particular, who had some really choice things to say about me and who I was when I was younger, right? So I just decided a long time ago that wasn't for me. And coming into Alcoholics Anonymous and realizing that I didn't have a choice. If I wanted to stay sober, I had to have a spiritual life. My counselor said to me on the very first day when I got to treatment, she said, the first thing out of her mouth, I think, basically was, you have two options going forward from here as an alcoholic. You can either drink yourself to death or you can get spiritual. And I remember pausing for a while and then looking at her and go, are you sure those are the only two options? And I really remember asking her that, are you sure those are the only two options? So I can drink myself to death or get to know God and have a relationship with a God that I can understand. And she said, those are the only two options. And I had to think about it for a while and get back to her on it. I really did. But ultimately I made the decision to try a spiritual way of life, right? I decided while I was in treatment still that I was going to give that a try. So I started praying, to a God I absolutely did not believe in. As I walked around the sidewalks, around the treatment center, I would pray to God. I still pray every day now, I always think people talk about how their prayer and meditation is sort of like the more challenging part of their program, and prayer is not so hard for me. Meditation is, but I will say that I feel like Cliff always says that God is experiential, right? That we experience God, we don't understand God, and that really hit home for me the first time I heard him say that. It made sense to me that we experience God through other people, right? And I feel like coming into Alcoholics Anonymous, for the first time in my life, I was open-minded enough and willing enough to experience God. And I think because I opened my mind to the idea that he was possible, right? That it was possible, that I formed a relationship with him, and then I got to actually experience him for the first time in my life. Right, because I was so closed off. I would never have considered experiencing God in the past. So that's what the steps have really done for me, allowed me the opportunity. I had to get desperate enough, of course, to give it a try. But thank God I got desperate enough. Right, I came in here, I gave this an honest try, and I have a relationship with God, and I experience Him every single day. Right, I got to go back to my career this year. I'm a middle school special education teacher, now I get to experience God all the time at work, and I take the principles that I learned in this program with me to work. I am more patient with kids than I've ever been. Right, I'm more loving to my students than I've ever been before. I'm more loving to my parents. I'm of maximum service to my parents, I feel like right now. I'm happy to say that, and to the students that I serve, and to the teachers that I work with, right? I try to be of maximum service to other alcoholics. I take meetings at treatment centers twice a week. I've actually got a sponsee right now who's made it past step 3, and that's exciting for me. And so anyway, I'm really, really grateful for the life that this program has given me. And I'm so grateful that it's just wild to me that I'm sitting in this room right now doing this, when just a year and a half ago, I was drinking myself to death in my tiny apartment in Dallas with the blinds drawn. It was literally dark in there. It was figuratively dark in there. It smelled horrible in there. I hadn't showered in a long time, could not maintain a job. And my best friend in the world was Hendrick's Gin. I would just drink myself to death in there. And now that it's just astounding to me what this program can do for people. I don't even know how to express how grateful I am for it. So I think that's probably all I've got, but thanks a lot for letting me ramble.